This is TWiT.
So we can't really ignore the story of the week, which has to do with the former employee of Google who published a memo that was very controversial and got him fired. A software engineer who said some very well, I already said controversial, but difficult things in a open memo not an open memo. This was actually an internal memo at Google, but it was available to various employees. His last name, I'm not sure how to pronounce. It's either Demore or Daymore. But by now you've probably caught wind of it, hopefully read the memo. You've certainly probably read coverage of the memo. And we bring it up on This Week in Law because we like to seize on opportunities, and this is just such a one, to point out that the First Amendment doesn't work the way a lot of people think that it works. Oftentimes people think that they have, the absolute right to say what's on their mind in whatever way, in whatever forum, and that's a valued protection that we have in the United States. And that's not how the First Amendment works. What we have here is somebody speaking in the context of their job. It matters very much whether he was an at-will employee or an employee who was under contract. That has to do with under what circumstances he can be fired. If he was hired at will, that means you don't need any reason. You could decide you don't like the cut of his jib in any way to let him go as an employee, as long as he's not in a protected class. Right. You can't do discriminatory things to an at-will employee, but it does not appear that that's what happened here. And then also, even if he is under employment contract with Google, you could still let him go for cause. And if you are talking about somebody who's creating either violating Google's internal policies, which it seems he may have done here, or creating a situation where Google could be sued by other workers who considered the substance of this memo creating a hostile work environment, then he could be let go for cause for those reasons or other reasons. So, or if
this guy happened to give any monthly annual reviews to women, and it turns out that he was not the kind of person to be, doing that with in good faith. This is the other thing that could bring liability on Google.
Right. There are sort of two prongs of the memo that he submitted. One is he feels that the diversity initiatives at Google are not operating properly, that they are disadvantaging certain employees in ways that they should not be. And then he went on to talk about how women biologically are different from men. And either one of those things could be problematic. The second one certainly more so. There is a legal wrinkle here in favor of Daymore. He did lodge a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board before he was fired. And he may be able to say that his dismissal was somehow related to his complaints about working conditions and find some protection under the NLRB there. So it's not completely cut and dried. There's a very nice piece by Alexia Hernandez-Campbell at Vox that sort of lays out all of the legal procedural aspects of this, both on the Google side and on the former employee side. So if you're interested in the particulars of that, I recommend that piece. I personally don't think that Google has much to worry about here. Engineers at Google are non-union. If he was a union employee, this could be more problematic for Google, but that's not the case. So just one of those instances. Number one, we wanted to point out, again, don't think the First Amendment covers all speech, because it doesn't. And secondly, that robots may next turn their laser focus on humanity and begin saying that they are much more capable of writing music and otherwise performing tasks that we traditionally have done, and that perhaps we are not the ideal employees that they would make. I'm alluding to the fact that there's a wonderful piece of satire at McSweeney's, which if you're not already reading, will brighten your day immensely if you start doing so. It's a piece titled, "I'm a Google manufacturing robot, and I believe humans are biologically unfit to have jobs in tech." So
I do want to say that I find the term meat sacks derogatory, and it does create an unsafe working environment.
It's very hostile.
So I would object to that term.
Exactly.
I think another thing to note. Thing to note here is, all of you starry-eyed millennials that want to go work in Silicon Valley, remember, you're probably going to be at will. Basically, you're probably going to be an at-will employee everywhere you go. And to keep that in mind, at will means you can be fired at will.
Right. The other thing that just came to mind in seeing all the coverage and reaction to this story is we cover so many times people who get fired for what they post on social media. And we try and, let people know that you better be careful what you're posting on social media, because it can certainly come back and impact negatively your ability to keep your job. And I think that Google would have been in a fine position to terminate this guy if he had simply posted it on social media and not in a workplace context. They probably have even more basis for letting him go. For this being a for cause kind of dismissal if he's doing this in a workplace context. Any thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, and the third point of maybe why he was fired is that it was a 3,300 word essay on it. It just kind of shows I just do not recommend writing a 3,300 page memo on anything unrelated to work at work.
I'm sure that every tech company encourages their workers to, have that sort of hour or 3 hours or however long during the week to work on your own independent projects. And I encourage you to work on your independent projects that are not discriminatory screeds against your fellow coworkers.